Hello, this is Helen Edward, and I'm here today with Barnes Pond Life podcast, or Pondcast as I'm calling it now, with the fabulous Charles Campion. And Charles is a very special guest for us to talk to today because he's not only a Richmond Community Heroes Award winner, but also the origin and founder of the Barnes Ponder. And I'm sure that you all remember having seen the ponder advertised by the pond with ribbons around the tree. And that Barnes Ponder has developed over the years and become something quite special. And Charles is going to tell us all about that. But Charles is specially qualified to talk to us because in his day job, he's an architect for JTP Architects. He's also a trustee of Plunket UK and a trustee of Thames Estuary. So I'm going to just let Charles roll with this. I want to hear all about the Barnes Tuesday Local, which is his other new project, which is quite exciting. We're going to talk about Hammersmith Bridge, the pods, which is really amazing, a little bit on the Limebikes, and a little bit on the Riverwall project, the View, and Profit Stock. Plenty to talk to Charles about. So Charles, thank you so much for coming to talk to us today. Where would you like to start the story? With the ponder, how that began?
I think so. Yeah, the ponder, Barnes Ponder. Yeah, I mean, I've lived in Barnes with my wife for 20 years. We moved here in 2006. And after, I suppose, the credit crunch and the problems there, the high street itself was struggling, I think. It may have been for other reasons too. But I found that we couldn't buy a pint of milk or a newspaper on the high street, and something I thought needed to be done if we could as a community. So we had a meeting initially. We had Mary Clear from Incredible Edible Todmorden came to talk to us about the work they'd done there, and David Barry from the People's Supermarket, where the community had set up their own supermarket. And then we formed a little group and tried to work out what we could do. And then the Mary Porter's pilot project was initiated by the government at the time, looking at high streets, and they set up. She had to write a report, and they offered some funding. And we didn't get the main funding, but we were then eligible for £10,000, which MP at the time, Zach Goldsmith, just had to write into the department, and we got this money. And we decided one of the things we had to do was set up a town team, and they were saying it should be business and local authority, but I thought to myself, well, that's already kind of existing. What we miss out on so often is the community's role. And through my work, my career as well, I've sort of specialised in involving communities in shaping their places and creating visions. So I thought we should do that. We set up the Barnes Ponder Initiative, and the word just came, to me at some point. We were going to have a workshop, a community planning day to create a vision for Barnes, invite the whole community. And as you said, we had a great marketing sort of campaign with ribbons. But and we got the kids involved, and we started talking to shopkeepers and stuff. So it was actually a sort of combination of the local business community and the Barnes through the BCA community and the town team. And we held a fantastic event in October 2013 and created a vision for Barnes, which was multifaceted. I can remember one conversation about, should we invite visitors to Barnes? Is that something that's good? Some people thought, no, Barnes should just be for Barnes people. Others thought, no, if we invite people in, they can share, the wonderful things that we have here, but also help the local economy.
Yeah, so, I think the Barnes Day Out campaign has been very successful.
There was lots of things that came out of it. And also, I think maybe the vibe of as well of positivity and thinking, how do we push things forward? And subsequently, a lot of things happened. The town team sort of established, the action groups came out of that as well, looking at different projects from playgrounds at Suffolk Road Rec, which is really successful and fantastic project, to things in the high street, and as you say, other sort of more socially oriented projects. And it's easy just to sort of lose track of what you've done. But when we came to sort of revisit the vision in 2023, 10 years later, we sort of thought, actually, we've started to list the things that had come out. And, some of them were directly from the Ponder. Others were things that people were doing, and the number of festivals and activities that were happening in Barnes subsequently were massive. And also the footfall on the high street was double at least. I do counts not every Saturday now, but sort of around 12 o'clock on a Saturday, and are able to compare week by week. And it's just gone from it's more than doubled on Saturdays, and now it's nearly up to 3 times regularly all the time. And I think people probably experience that themselves, and all the empty shops are now pretty much full. There's always a bit of a churn anywhere, but generally I think Barnes is a very successful thriving place from a business and sort of community facilities and restaurants, food and beverage point of view. I think one of the things from 2023 revisiting the vision was also really trying to emphasize looking at the whole community. So there's now an action group called One Barnes, and they're looking at creating we saw at the last town team meeting a presentation on the new website that's being created with the support of various also local businesses, but I think the Olympic Cinema is very involved. And that's going to be really exciting as well, because it will no doubt be extremely high quality and will be a real sort of focal point, anything you want to know that's going on in Barnes, both whether you're a resident or a visitor, or maybe someone looking to move to Barnes. So yeah, just amazing initiatives and lots of energy, and it's still going strong today. So it's very gratifying.
And then you've recently had the Barnes Ponder too.
That's right. Yeah. So in 2023, we thought, well, let's reboot the vision. I mean, I wrote a book in 2018 about communities around the world, really, who've taken hold of their places and worked to sort of create visions and then realize those dreams, if you like. And one of the things that I saw was that often projects can take a long time, and some projects will never end. There's no end to Barnes Village. So, but you do need to look again. Times change, but also the kind of core strands of the vision sort of remain. And I think one of the things we look to do as well is probably engage younger people more. It's always a big challenge, but I think that's something that.
So I think you've also divided them up into groups. Placemaking is yours. Yeah. That's the one that you lead, isn't it? And that's what we're going to talk about in a moment. But what are the other groups called? I think we've got one on flooding as well. Bluescapes.
Yeah, there's Green Barnes and Barnes Common, Community Bluescapes. It's kind of tied in with all of that sort of work. So we've delivered something like rain gardens. People might start to see those, starting to understand there's a whole range of things going on, and it's about engaging the community on that, and people also taking personal responsibility for ensuring that they're providing flood resilience, and it's about learning as well. So there's a lot of projects going on. People have seen the in the meandering, etc., and that's coming out of the community bluescapes, but these are also projects that people talked about at the Ponder. I mentioned the One Barnes, which is about serving the whole community and understanding, how to work and what services are needed, etc. Travel Barnes is very active, and obviously with the changing in the bus routes, etc., which can really, with the bridge closed to buses and cars, there was initially emergency timetables put in place, and they've been revisited. So the Travel Barnes have been working very, very. I think there's a meeting next week coming up, so watch this space. But that's a lot of hard work by members of the community who really want to make sure that things are right for the Barnes community. Bus services, being very important.
So under the placemaking umbrella, then. Shall we start with Hammersmith Bridge? That's a hot topic for
I put
all of the Barnes Ponder.
As an architect, everything to me comes under placemaking, because I think that's what we all share. We share Barnes. Whether it's sort of social issues or economic issues or physical and how we get about, it all comes down to how we see the place and how we understand the place and how we care for the place and promote the place. It's what we all share. So to me, that's the origin of it all, really. It helps with discussions, I think, as well, if you have that territory. So, I run the Placemaking Barnes group, and some of the things are quite sort of high, cost in the sense that we can't just deliver, we have to work with partners. Council obviously is we try to promote things and latch onto projects they might want to run, etc. I think also being the positivity that comes out of having a vision, where you're going, and we're seen as a positive community. I know that the council have come to us with different projects to pilot, to trial, because of that. So, but so various things. We're looking at the river. Well, initially Small Profits Dock you mentioned. So that's a project that we've had a meeting on site recently. But that's a sort of a part of the heritage of Barnes, which is a slipway down to the river, and obviously the river was much more used in bygone days. So how, people want to be able to have better access to the river, to see the river, to enjoy being by the river. Maybe, as I say, that people talking about, getting the boats down there or whatever, but it's a place that there's pretty much hidden and could be a lot better.
I'm allowed to ask you about Barnes Beach. I love that idea.
Well, the idea that people could get down and enjoy, but there's also another placemaking project is the Barnes Common Vine Road Rec, and that's a sort of major thing that's being done. Barnes Common is running that project, but that will be providing a lot of new facilities, improving facilities, and really trying to listen to the local community and bring things. One of the things that came out of the Pondo was a skateboard park, and that's something, again, it's easy to say the young people want it now. They're probably all grown up, the ones who said it initially, but that's part of the new plans as well. So it's, trying to sort of listen and engage and deliver for all parts of the community. The back to the small profit dock, we're not sure if it's profits or profit, but that's a place along the river. But what we're thinking is that we could expand the project to look at the whole of the riverfront from Hammersmith Bridge down to Mortlake Brewery, because there's things that could be done in places. We're not trying to make radical changes necessarily. Lots of people have lots of ideas, but there are some places that just need a bit of work from an accessibility point of view. I think particularly from the White Hart to the brewery isn't really that easy to negotiate, particularly if you've got mobility challenges. So, we think we can sort of start rebooting that idea to run a project there.
Yeah. And is the river wall, the glass fronted idea, is that still in place?
That was something that came out of the original Ponder, improve, obviously the concrete wall, probably a bit used to it, but it's not the most beautiful structure. There are lots of places that you'll travel to for city breaks or whatever. You go to Prague, the river walls come out of the floor. Some are pivoted. There are some places in Ireland I've seen glass walls. So what's the future of that? What could it work?
Yeah. I mean, we quite like the one at Fulham Reach, but I think also Brentford has adopted quite a lot of glass around the canal system.
Yeah. And, so those sort of things need to be thought about. And obviously it's major infrastructure and all of the authorities need to be involved. But yeah, if the community's got ideas and vision, then you can start pushing these things forward. I mean, again, if you go to Ireland, you've got the Liffey, you have the walkway that's drop down onto the other sides. But it's trying to start thinking about these ideas and even just making things look more beautiful.
And with your involvement on the Thames Estuary as a trustee, does that help you navigate?
For me, that's a fairly new thing, the Thames Estuary Partnership. I haven't been on that for long, but those sorts of, I think, bringing people together, convening and starting to have those discussions and just having the community's input into that is really important. Yeah. As I say, being positive, but, having visionary ideas, but also understanding how they might in reality be delivered.
But it's great to hear, that huge focus on the river, because, we are in Barnes in a peninsula, aren't we? It goes literally all the way around. That must make us really quite unique in London.
I mean, there aren't...
And not least because we're cut off. So we have our own little island, really.
All of the constituent parts of a place, the history, the environmental aspects, the fact we're on the river, floodplain, all these things are really important to understand. So, and to draw out and to interpret in new ways.
So what's the plan for small profits? What could it look like? Can you paint us a picture?
Well, one thing is to create a place where people could sit and enjoy. Could be some great views to the bridge, Barnes Bridge, bring in a coffee truck, maybe at weekends, people who walk along there are sponsored walks, runs, dog walking, just have somewhere that's pleasant to be. There's also issues, I think, with the revetment that has some trees growing out of it, which shouldn't really be there because they, obviously harm the structure. So it's just working to see what's the right thing. At the moment, it's a bit nondescript. There's nothing really there. I'm not trying to create, a huge focus, but just somewhere. If you go on the other side, Chiswick Pier, you have a coffee truck there that's really successful every weekend.
Yes.
So it's just trying to create what you might call a moment along the river.
Yeah. And they've got that amazing new millennium structure there, haven't they? On the other side of Barnes Bridge.
That's just a continuation of the footpath. I think that's been quite successful. Generally, there's the idea of the river is that people are able to enjoy it, get close to it, have good accessibility, and provide some facilities, but enhancing it.
And so sort of connecting us then across Barnes Bridge, we're also talking about the view which is the name we've given to the idea of the garden bridge.
Yes, so many people may not know that the Barnes Bridge is actually two bridges. Initially, it was first built, it was a single track bridge, and then quickly they wanted to increase the capacity, so they built another bridge next door to it, and the original bridge has now not been used since then. And sits there, and people may know the High Line in New York. So the idea is there's the walking bridge that hangs off the bridge to the east side that we all use, which is quite narrow. People are cycling across it, etc. I just think I saw a picture of a load of Limebikes parked on it yesterday. So it's very narrow, and the Hungerford Bridge used to be like that, and it's just a thing. So they put. The idea is that the original bridge could become another route across, and it's quite wide. So why not create a garden bridge there? So it's an existing structure, and so there's a project called The View, which is ongoing. And again, with the brewery coming on, there's money that comes out of development. It's a major development, Section 106 funding. So if a community's got a vision for something, that's helpful as a starting point. So let's see where that goes.
Fantastic. So we've talked a little bit about the river, we've talked about Small Profits Dock, and we've talked about the view. What's next?
The bridge.
Hammersmith Bridge. Okay.
Yes. And we've managed to hold two Barnes Ponder events without going too much into the bridge. The first one wasn't such an issue, but the second time the bridge had been closed and it was there, sitting there. What we're working on now, and I think as time goes by, people have got their different views about it, but as time goes by, it may be that people are realizing, this is my view, that it's quite unlikely that it's going to reopen for cars. We've just had the local elections, and so we think that now's a good time to actually sort of look at alternatives. And there's a task force that sits there. They've got three different sort of alternatives now. But about 3 years ago, climate change charity Possible looked at the idea of bringing pods over the bridge, autonomous pods. So the electric vehicles are quite lightweight. They could take a 10, 11, 12 people across every time. They are now on the roads in Milton Keynes, fully licensed. They're not providing services yet, but it's a sort of a pilot looking at that. So there was a video done by Possible, which is very enticing, and it had
it is indeed.
It had the service running from where the buses stop at Castle now across the bridge to outside the Apollo, with the tube station there. And that was
it's a very neat landing place, literally right opposite the tube station.
And that's
where all, if you're traveling across the bridge, that's mostly where you're going, isn't it? Yeah.
And that was, that would obviously provide a service, for anyone in theory, but equally for people who perhaps can't walk and cycle those sort of distances. Also had the kind of benefit in the sense of not conflicting with road traffic. It had its own path. So it's worth looking at that. But what we're trying to do now is to promote that idea. So we're setting up a community interest company called BELT, which is Barnes Hammersmith Electric Light Transit, to look at bringing the pods across the bridge, having a feasibility study. There is central government funding out there for looking at innovation in autonomous vehicles, which sits there, not being drawn down. And so we're looking to apply for that. We're working with Omeo, who did the original bit of work with Possible. And we've got representation on our group from both sides of the river, including Barnes Community Association and Hammersmith Society. Quite a lot of people who know what they're doing. So we're getting on and working with Omeo UK to bring the pods to Barnes Fair, so people can actually see the pods. That's going to be amazing. So they'll be at the fair. Yeah. We're hoping that there may be a spot by the bridge as well. Yeah. So we'll have two pods. And then in the week running up to the Barnes Fair, which is on Saturday, the 11th of July, we will also run it around on the roads in Barnes. So people might see it trundling around and imagining what it could be like as a service. Now,
you're going to raise all our hopes and our expectations.
Well, raising expectations is, yes, you've got to have an idea of where you want to go if you're going to get there, and it's good to raise expectations. But we're not saying, this is the stage we're at the moment. We're promoting these ideas, but obviously need to work eventually with councils. Both sides of the river know what we're doing, being very open and transparent about it. And the idea in the longer term is to run a feasibility study to look at things like the structure of the bridge, what would need to happen. Can we make the pods lighter? Can we fabricate them in this country? How would a service run, and how would it integrate with existing services? Because who would provide it? Not us. We're not transport providers. It would presumably become part of the TfL offer. Not necessarily. It would probably be the easiest route. How would you pay for it? Exactly. Would you pay for it with an Oyster card, or would it be part of the freedom? Presumably. It doesn't conflict really, we don't think, with existing services, particularly not if it stopped at the other side of the castle now, top of the castle now. But if it carried on, which technically is perfectly possible that it could carry on into Barnes, could go to the Wetland Centre, could go to Barnes Station, could go around Barnes. This is the future of transport. There are no drivers. It goes where it's asked to go. It will travel at safe speeds, and it's a very safe technology. So as well as it being specific to Hammersmith Bridge, it's also looking at the innovation and how it could. I mean, I can't think of, there may be other places in London, but I can't think of anywhere that would be more appropriate if it's technically feasible to do it, notwithstanding the point about the weight limit of the bridge, etc. But equally, if the bridge had to be strengthened, and we know there's probably ongoing work that's needed, it presumably would be a lot cheaper to strengthen it for a lightweight pod than it would be for a full-on bus. And also what we're saying is that this isn't precluding longer term solutions, because I think our starting point is that I think most people that there needs to be some kind of public transport solution across. People have talked about pedicabs, but that only takes maybe maximum 2 people. It's not providing the level of service that a pod would do. So that's why we think this is a really good opportunity to crack on and really look at it seriously now.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear, that we are taking this forward, because we've been talking about it for a long time, and you're right. Vision of how it might look would really be a big step forward.
Well, we're doing what we can. So we want to be open and transparent, work with partners, and not underestimate the technical difficulties or the difficulties that
but it'd be lovely to have them at the Barnes Fair and be able to get in one and see what it's all about.
Well, if nothing else, it's very interesting to see. And I think when people see them going around the roads, I mean, I've travelled on them in Milton Keynes, and there's no driver. And there's no infrastructure other than a road. So it's not an expensive technology. And if you have them temporarily for a number of years, say, and then something more significant happened to the bridge, then that's it. They fulfill their function. You take them away, use them somewhere else. You don't have to take up a load of track. Or
quite flexible. And when you have a look at that video, it has got a very nice channel, and it parks it underneath the bridge. I mean, there is work to do there. That is part of the. Did you suggest it was going to be about 10 million? Did I read that? 11 million?
I think that the possible was about 11 million to get the service. I think that was based on 10 vehicles, two being charged at any one time, 8 running at any one time, crossing one at a time over the central section of the bridge. They work incredibly efficiently as autonomous vehicles. Once they get going, are very efficient in terms of their use of the road space, but also how they can run. They can join together. They call it platooning, create a little train. So it's very, once you get into it, it's fascinating what the alternatives are. And the thing is that people often don't talk about as well is the cost saving of it being driverless, because the cost of a driver is half most of any bus service. And so to have a smaller vehicle often isn't really much of a saving, but it is in this case, because the vehicle is just made to the size you want it. It's a different fabrication process. They're very light. It could be all sorts of materials. It's got a huge cost saving.
Oh, well, look, that is really exciting. That is really exciting indeed. So I think actually I wanted to ask you as well about Limebikes, because of course they have been a game saver for many of us trying to get over the bridge, and there's been a change made by the council on the contract. I know you love your bike as well as I do. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of controversy at the time when the decision was made. I mean, for me, councils have to make their own decisions based on what they think, and obviously they'll take account of local views. The major thing for me is I think it's unfortunate that London as a whole, through the GLA, TfL, whatever, the right body, doesn't have control over the service in the way it does over
because it's connectivity that's so crucial.
Absolutely. As we're in Barnes, the idea that you may or may not be able to get a particular bike from a particular company, whatever it might be. I mean, we see the issues at Chiswick Bridge, for example, where there are one company's bikes on one side stopped and then another on the other side. We are on the east side of the borough, so I think there's a particular closeness to the city.
We are going to feel it, I think, more than other parts of our borough.
Yeah. Similarly, people coming in from outside the borough and notice a lot of bikes, and obviously it's one company or another, and when it changes, then people will start to use the others. But it's just that overall connectivity within London boroughs, for it to be being made borough by borough, to me does seem to be that strong. And
it's not that strategic, is it?
It is, as you say, it's game changing. We see loads of people coming over now on EVs to use the businesses and the restaurants and enjoy Barnes, which is great in terms of,
and so important actually for young people. The school, you see them outside the Herodian, you see them outside Barnes.
Absolutely, and
but as a big Limebike user myself, can I also beg that we put on the placemaking agenda the potholes, because if you cycle from Barnes Station up to Hammersmith Bridge, you literally like this, and sometimes it's really dangerous if you've got a bus coming alongside.
Well, it's quite high on the political agenda, potholes. It is, which is unfortunate.
The pothole patrol. Have you been seeing pictures of this new machine?
I mean, one of the things, if anyone wants to go up to Milton Keynes to see the pods, they've got an innovation centre in the shopping centre there, and it's run by Omeo as well. Not only have they got the pod, the electric pod vehicles, they've got these robots, and they do all sorts of things. So they can spread salt on pavements. They're like the sort of hoovers that people, or the vacuum cleaners that people have in their homes now, robot cleaners, and they can put salt on pavements. They can spot weeds. They can spray weed, whatever. They can survey roads. They can do potholes. I mean, I've seen, again, technology hopefully will make it cheaper and easier to get a grip of this problem. I don't think the problem in where we live here is anywhere near what it is in the rest of the countries. I mean, if you go on rural roads, I was north of Exeter with a friend the other day, and it's something that it's got so bad. I mean, I didn't have any idea that it got that bad, and it's shocking. So, but for cyclists, it is very, very dangerous.
It is.
It's a potential,
And I actually do have a friend of a friend who hit a pothole while on a scooter, and really came to a bad.
But also, I think there's issues of consideration on the road for everyone to be considerate. With more bikes around, with my counts at Barnes High Street on Saturdays, the number of bikes, because I count the bikes as well, is again probably 4 or 5 times more than it was 10 years ago.
So maybe that covers most of the placemaking aspects to your role. I know that I'd love to ask you all about the Tuesday night local at Bull's Head.
That's right.
Is there anything else on the placemaking that I should ask you about?
No, I think, as I said, place is what we all share. We're lucky in Barnes, extraordinarily lucky with the amount of green space, how we manage that. We've got a fantastic community interest company, Barnes Common, which does a phenomenal job. We're so lucky. I think everyone respects the environment and respects how lucky we are. It's important, we're sitting here in the middle of a heat wave, to have green space, to allow the grass to grow at this time of year. I was looking at something showing the temperature of long grass stays really quite low during a heat wave, whereas if you cut the grass short, the temperature of it actually rockets up. So,
I didn't even know that.
Something like 19 degrees centigrade for long grass. And if you cut it shorter, it's about 25, and then if you cut it really bare, it can hit 40 degrees. So there are real sort of environmental implications in what we do with the environment. That's all placemaking. But also a colleague of mine who used to run hotels and went into the world of placemaking says that running a town or a place is a village is should be like running a hotel, because you're reinventing yourself every day. You're providing hospitality. You're looking after the guests, making sure it looks as good as it possibly can, investing in it regularly. I think that's a great sort of comparison, analogy. And so therefore the Barnes Tuesday Local is a seamless move into that territory was really about using the places we've got, because third spaces, as they're known, community spaces, include pubs, include hospitality, as well as community centres. And again, we're lucky with what we've got in Barnes. But if I walk past the pubs on a Tuesday night, nowadays they can be fairly open. So I thought, well, why not? There are people sitting in their homes, maybe on their own. Perhaps they'd like to go out, but they haven't got anyone to go with, or they don't want to go in a pub because they feel a bit silly looking at their drink, and a bit worried to talk to people. So let's set up something where people feel very comfortable. They know that's what it's for. It's for anyone to turn up from 6 till 8 at the Bull's Head every Tuesday without fail, every single week. And they can meet people they want to talk to, and they don't have to talk to anyone if they don't want to, but they can just be there in company. They don't have to drink alcohol. They can have whatever they want. And it's taken off really, really well. And so, last night it was Tuesday night, and I turned up. I was there to start with,
and it was your birthday yesterday as well.
My birthday, it's beyond the call of duty.
We're actually birthday twins. It's my birthday as well.
That's right, 26th of May. And so, and then people start to come, and some people, are there for different reasons. Paul, who runs the travel barns, came because he wanted to speak to me about something. Other people came. Someone brought their dog, been for a walk. It's very cool in there, I must say, which was great. They've got the aircon, so that was really good, given it was a very hot day yesterday. People are getting to know each other, but also welcome. We always have new members every week. There was a woman came a couple of weeks ago, and she said, "I'm not sure if I'm the right profile." I said, "Look." She said, "I live on my own." I said, "Absolutely. This is exactly what it's for."
For everyone.
And you don't have to come every week. There's no rules other than,
You've got to love Barnes, though.
Well, yeah, but sometimes people complain about things, but most of the time it's just very, pleasant, and people talk to different people. You might recognize someone, you might not, but it's just really lovely. And so it's been very, very successful. We had the mayor a couple of weeks ago who came. Yeah. She was lovely, and a huge turnout on that day. So, occasionally we'll do something a little bit special, and we'll see how it evolves. But overall, please do come 6 till 8 on Tuesdays at the Bull's Head. It's a lovely, that's iconic pub. Yeah,
lovely. That's really lovely. So, is there anything else I should ask you? Because I know that your philosophy of placemaking and how you've just created this lovely sense of belonging, which I think we all appreciate. It touches us all. So thank you so much for everything that you've given us here in Barnes. Is there any stories I should ask you?
Well, I think, it came really, I think, partly from when I was growing up, and say my mother was sort of always very aware of the environment, and was quite sort of talked to people, and probably was a bit of focus. And I remember going to the church fair where my grandparents lived in Ewell Village, and so this chap who lived across the street from my grandparents, and he was the compere. And I thought, wow, how great to be able to talk to all these people. So I suppose that was a bit of a model, There's huge, a lot of people are putting a lot of work in to Barnes, and they do it because they love it. And it's, it's just one small part of that. But I think as I said before, the place making, the fact that we all share the place, and, it's really important to my mind, it enables conversations to be had, but it's also important to look after where we live. So that's what we try to do, whether it's shop fronts or, the common or the riverfront or the traffic, things like that. These are really important that we talk about, and we know where we're trying to get to. Yeah. We involve as many people as possible. Yeah. And we're a strong, positive community with a vision. I think conversations come out of that. And so the more we talk to each other and share, I think the better.
Well, look, thank you so much for sharing that fabulous view of Barnes and everything that you've done to bring it to where it is now. We're very grateful indeed. Thank you, Charles. And it's wonderful to be able to share your story with our listeners today.
And happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you too. Thank you. Thank you.